Hi, friends. Welcome to Getting Your Real Estate Life Together. I'm Tracy Hicks with All Things Real Estate. And on today's episode, we have Thomas and Patrick from Portland, Oregon. And I'm going to let Thomas introduce himself first and then Patrick. We had a whole thing about who was going to go first and how we were going to do this. So here we go.
Hey, Tracy, thank you so much for having us today. I think you mentioned my name's Thomas Shapiro. I'm a realtor here in Portland, Oregon, as well as Vancouver, Washington, and I'm one of the heads of the Piece of PDX team.
Awesome. And Patrick?
Hey, my name is Patrik and Antich. I am a native Portlander, one of the unicorns, and the other half of the Piece of PDX team.
Awesome. I'm a unicorn too, born and raised.
Nice.
Okay, so Thomas, you're licensed in both Oregon and Washington. Patrick, are you as well?
No, I focus on Oregon.
Okay, awesome. So tell me a little bit about how you guys structure that and how you've structured your business and kind of who handles what and what because I know you have an assistant too, right, Thomas?
We have a marketing admin, but we are still working on the assistant part. There's a bit of flux there where, I'm sure as a business owner, you understand it's so challenging sometimes to try and address your needs in the moment and also slow down enough to bring someone on and make sure they're a good fit for what you're doing. So at this point, it's just us three. And then we also have an assistant who helps us with our transaction coordinating.
I love that you guys went with the marketing person first instead of a buyer's agent or just a general assistant. So tell me a little bit about why you made that decision and how that kind of came about.
Yeah. As a typical millennial, I spend most of my time on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
When I first got into real estate, I spent most of my time on Facebook adding a bunch of random people because unlike you both, I moved to Portland 6 years ago and started in real estate here 3 years ago. And so my network was teeny.
Right.
So I just added a million people. And I had this conversation, I still remember it with my broker, and he would just say to me, there's no harm in asking.
Right.
So I'd add random people and I'd be like, hey, how's your day going? And they'd be like, oh, it's good. And I'm like, oh, cool. What are you doing? They'd be like, well, I'm working. And I'd say, oh, me too. And then I'd ask them what they do for work. And then they'd ask me. And then I'd be like, well, yeah, are you looking to buy a house? Or are you looking to sell a house? And it was the most shameless, direct conversation. But I mean, I got business out of it. And so I really leaned into social media as a platform, not just for connecting with people that you know, but people that you don't know. Started shooting videos that year and started posting a lot and trying to kind of build a bit of a following. And as things ramped up, it became a little less tenable.
Right.
We were shooting 1 or 2 videos every single week and posting regular, consistent content across, multiple platforms. And, I just didn't have the bandwidth for it anymore. So to help relieve that for both Patrick and myself, we hired our marketing admin who basically helps to roadmap our plan for the month and then launches stuff for us so that it takes a lot of that pressure off to be on your phone, updating it, and typing in the hashtags, so on and so forth.
Yeah. And I think also too, what you just said, the planning part of it, I think a lot of people get really caught up on that part of it. And it just it feels so daunting, and you're in the middle of showings or putting a house on the market or open houses and that kind of stuff. So I can imagine that relieves a lot of the pressure that way as well.
It does. Yeah. It's been probably one of the best decisions we've made as business owners to offload that.
That's awesome. And can I just say you're very brave for doing that with Facebook? I love that. And we just recorded another podcast a couple of weeks ago with Lana, and she was kind of in the same similar situation, except she had come from Russia to the United States, but same thing where she didn't know anybody. And so she had to put herself out there. And one of the things she said was she got a piece of advice that it was give your business card to everybody you meet. And she said that she was in the DMV and she was like, oh my gosh, I have to give her my business card and I don't want to do it. And I don't want to do it. And it was actually one of her first deals wasn't the lady at the DMV, but it was a friend of the lady at the DMV who had her card and gave it to a friend and actually closed the deal. So yeah, bravo to you for doing that.
Yeah. Gotta be scrappy.
Right. And what about you, Patrick, being here, being born and raised, what was that like going? Well, how long have you been in real estate, Patrick?
Well, that's a good question. So I've been working with Thomas for about a year and a half now, really focused at first on sort of the administrative side and really ramping up. And so understanding, the paperwork and the wrangling behind the scenes to make the deal appear seamless to your client.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, being really intentional about putting yourself out there and allowing that discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you avoid it, it's never going to get better. And so you just got to power through and sort of lean into it. And that's, I've taken inspiration from Thomas and his ask and ask and ask.
Yeah.
And so it's been a good lesson for me as well.
Yeah, I think both of it has its challenges, being born and raised from where you live, and then also, being new to the area, both have their own challenges. I think when you're born and raised somewhere, you feel like you don't have to do as much work because you feel like you know everybody and everybody knows you're a realtor and they're just going to call you. And that's definitely not the case.
That's right.
So what are some of the things that you guys do for your marketing? So I actually want to continue with that. When you were new to the business or new to the city, what also, Thomas, aside from Facebook, what did you kind of decide was the natural path for marketing? What did you decide to do? I know you talked a little bit about video, but how did you market yourself?
I did a lot of different things. I'll give you the full spiel if you want to.
Yeah, please.
So I moved to Portland, like I said, 6 years ago, got married, and then shortly thereafter endeavored into real estate. And it was close to the end of my first year in real estate that I realized my relationship was incredibly untenable with my partner. We just had drifted apart over time. And at that time I was working in real estate, but I didn't have any income coming from it. I had one closing. I was working as a bar security and
Pretty typical though. A lot of restaurant people or realtors have, I guess, probably 75% of the world's population has worked in a restaurant at one time or another, but during realtoring, it's very common.
Yeah. It was a hustle, I would go to work at, 8:00 at night. I'd get home at about 2 a.m. I'd get up at 7:30 or 8, and I would go into the office and I would go and show houses. And I didn't have a car at the time, so I was driving around in a little Zoom car, just like doing my best.
Doing the most, right.
Had no budget to speak of whatsoever. So, one of the first things I endeavored to do, of course, was social media because it was free.
Yeah.
And then I started and this I probably should have kept up with, but one of the other things I did was I got a list of non-owner occupied properties that had investors, and I got the investors' addresses and like anything with an LLC on it. And I started sending these letters out to them, farming them. And I got some responses. I don't think I was really ready to be communicating with total strangers. I needed more warm interactions, but
sounded good at the time.
Yeah. So there was a couple false starts there. The biggest thing I think, honestly, that really transformed my business was, right at the time that I realized that my relationship was about to end, my source of income was about to be, cut in half pretty significantly. I reached out to my principal broker and I just asked him, I was like, I don't know what I need to do here. Like, maybe I need to stop doing real estate. And he said, actually, I know of a pretty senior broker in our office who is looking for, something of like a buyer agent assistant to kind of step in because he's inundated. He can't focus. And so they made this connection with the two of us. We started working together, which really, it made such a huge difference for me, just realizing, this is how you work as a realtor. Like, it's not just, oh, I have this deal, I need to close it. It's who are the people in my pipeline? It's what is the workflow for getting people through the inspection process? So much of it is, there's like the holistic element of each transaction is unique, but you need to have some kind of structure and systems in place. Otherwise, it's going to be a nightmare each time.
Yep.
Or can be. So I learned a lot from him. I also got to kind of leverage a lot of those listings and transactions as my own, which helped me to build, a bit more of a reputation for myself as an agent versus someone who had never really closed more than 1 or 2 transactions.
Yeah.
I really think one of the best things as a new agent that you can do outside of even marketing yourself is finding an agent that you feel like you can either get mentored by or work for them in some capacity to just kind of learn, it's invaluable information you can pick up from them and then build into your own business. And so my relationship with that broker didn't last a terribly long time, but by the end of it, we had moved brokerages to one that honestly I think was a better fit for me culturally. But by the end of that, it felt like I had enough credibility and enough of a reputation in my own sphere that I was able to kind of start going out on my own.
Yeah. And I think exactly what you were saying too. It's a confidence thing. When you try stuff, I mean, let's face it, in real estate, we try things all the time and we fail all the time. And that can, especially when you're new in the business, you don't realize, oh, that's just a part of the business, is that it can be defeating. And I think that exactly what you said about working with somebody and kind of learning how they do things, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's how you're going to do it, but you can take from that and, take the things that work for you and utilize that in your own business. Your story is probably very similar to quite a few people who I did the same thing when I started 17 years ago. I hooked up with a friend who I had known since childhood, and he happened to be at a brokerage that I was looking at, and I wanted to be at a smaller one. And he was like, oh my gosh, yes. And I need help. And so I don't think I could have done it on my own. I was a single mom, 2 little kids, switching careers at 34, and people thought I was crazy. It's like, I'm only 34. I'm not 60. Yeah, I totally feel you. Patrick, you came into the business because of Thomas, correct?
Yeah. As a background, I was project manager by trade in financial institutions, and used to being sort of the go-to guy and having the answers, and then realizing very quickly that I don't have all the answers and I've got a lot to learn, which was, daunting, but also super exciting that, something new is going to happen today and something new is going to happen tomorrow. And, what's been exciting is being able to sort of leverage my background in those, process and scheduling and routines into, what we're building together here at Piece of PDX, which is super exciting.
Yeah. I love to hear what people did before they were a realtor, because it really does have an impact on your business, because you guys are all little mini corporations. And so people don't think about the business end of it. They're like, oh, I'm going to buy and sell houses and market. And then you haven't structured your business. You don't have a bookkeeper. You're not doing your tax. That kind of stuff is a huge part of running your own little mini operation. So how do you guys structure? Like, do you have bookkeepers? Are you still doing stuff on your own, or how are you guys structuring your business side of things? Or is that you, Patrick?
So we recently, at the beginning of the year, converted to an S Corp.
Oh, nice.
It was really exciting. This was on the heels of also, I'd been working with a tax preparator previously, and I just felt like he was not really paying attention to what we were doing. And so we went and hired a CPA. So we have a really excellent CPA who started kind of, difference between a preparator and a CPA is a preparator is not going to give you any advice on what you should and shouldn't do. And a CPA is going to talk to you about the loopholes a little more.
And making decisions on what to.
If I wanted to just file taxes, I'd go through TurboTax.
Right.
There's no need to pay someone money if they're not going to be adding value. And so I reached out to this guy and we started talking, and he recommended converting to an S Corp. And so there's tax incentives there that you're able to, I'm not a CPA and my understanding is pretty minimal, but
Yeah.
You know, you pay yourself a salary, and then there's a portion of it that's just the corporate and, you know, the income the company is making. And so, you know, with that self-employment tax that you're paying, you can kind of help to diminish that overall cost that you're looking at. That's been the process. You know, bookkeeping, I think, is still something on the horizon, and probably something that I need to be better about tracking, and all the mileage tracking that I haven't done yet for this month, and, you know, all that. But that's been the large scope of it.
Yeah, I think a bookkeeper was probably the best decision I ever made because, I mean, now with QuickBooks and bank accounts and all that stuff, it's a lot easier, but it's just one of those things, unless you like doing it, which is, you know, if you do, you're probably a CPA. So it's always better to hire out for that
Yeah.
than to try to do it yourself. Just like you said, might as well just do TurboTax if that's the case.
Mhm.
So, and I want to switch gears. We've talked about the business and kind of how you guys are structured. I want to talk a little bit more about your marketing, but I also want to know what tools you guys use in your day-to-day kind of, you know, you talk even with your marketing person, like what are you guys doing in terms of your sphere, or how are you scheduling posts? Like, what are you guys using as far as tools go?
Well, sure. So like for our social media and working with our social media person, we leverage Basecamp just to keep track of what our plan is, where we can keep content that we want to use for posts and just use as, you know, notes back and forth.
What is it called? Did you say Basecamp?
Basecamp, yeah.
Oh, okay. I haven't heard of that one.
I was just going to say, I should mention, you know, one of the big reasons why Patrik and I started working together, and the main reason why it seemed like such a good fit for us, other than, of course, you know, being partners, is he is so systematic, and I'm much more freeform as a person. And so I naturally repel systems, and he is someone who likes to build them.
Of
So I
course.
think
Yeah. Yin and yang.
so, you know, I like structure, but I think he likes structure a lot more than I do. And so that's his side of the business. I feel like more than my own is, you know, the systems that we use every day, all the software. And so that's why I think, you know, it's probably good that you're the one talking about it.
I mean, it's always good to have somebody in your corner, or again, the yin and the yang, that does the stuff that you don't like to do, and you do the stuff they don't like to do. That's generally why partnerships work. So it makes complete sense. Patrik, quickly, I just want to ask about Basecamp again, because I know people are always looking for stuff that people have used and it works, because there's so much stuff out there. What is it about Basecamp that you guys liked, and what made you decide to go with that platform?
Well, honestly, our social media person introduced it to us, but it's a really handy way to just sort and organize and plan when you aren't all sitting in the room together. You know, you can tag each other and you can get notifications. And so I'll say, here's something I want to focus on for next week. Can we collaborate on what that copy might look like? And it's just easy to go in and make those edits and make those suggestions and
Nice.
and work together collaboratively and remotely.
Cool.
It's been a great tool for us that way. And, you know, just like people have said it before, but the best system is the one that you actually use, right? And so, you know, coming from a place of liking a lot of system and liking to create a repeatable process, and Thomas not liking processes so much, you know, we've built one that works for us both. It sort of catches our right and left side brains and keeps us on the path, and you know, making sure that it's as seamless as possible for our clients.
Nice. Love that. Okay.
Yeah.
I think you were going to talk about something else. What else do you guys use?
For our CRM, we use Follow Up Boss, and that's our, you know, we've got our sphere in there and active and potential clients. And I think that's a lot of folks might use that one. That's been a great tool for us as well.
You said Follow Up Boss?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What made you decide to go with that one, I guess? Because they all kind of do the similar things, but there's always reasons why people choose, you know, one over the other.
I had been using, oh God, I've gone through, and I'm sure as most realtors out there can attest, like I've gone through probably 5 or 6 CRMs
Yep.
since starting. Each one always felt like there was just something missing, or I just never used it. And I was like, this is expensive and stupid. Why am I paying for this?
Yep.
Just connected with someone recently who had mentioned Follow Up Boss, because as much as I buck systems, I like having them available because it gives some peace and order to my brain.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that I really wanted to start doing was finding a way that I could consistently follow up with my clients that were, maybe 6 months out or a year out. How do you keep track of those people, and how do you keep yourself from calling and texting those people 3 times in 1 month and then not at all the next month?
Yeah.
With Follow Up Boss, what's amazing is that you can build out these little reminders for yourself, these like task lists essentially, or actual drip campaigns. It's super customizable in that sense. But anytime we get a new client, I will more or less sort them into these buckets. So we have our, 1 to 3 month, our 4 to 6 month, so on and so forth. And then, the cadences that you're supposed to follow up with those people. So I'll assign a campaign to each one. And that's my reference point for knowing, okay, you haven't spoken to this person in 2 weeks, give them a call or shoot them a text or whatever. That's been a huge game changer just in taking a lot of the guesswork out of it.
Yeah. And I can imagine also too, just it's almost like a safety net or a security blanket that that it's there, and you don't forget about people, and realtors are busy and have busy seasons and low seasons, and just knowing that you have that to go to. And that's half the battle. Again, just like you said, you tried several things and they didn't work for one reason or another. But again, and we say it all the time, is that if you're not going to use it, if it's the greatest tool on earth but you're not going to use it, it's not the right tool for you. So Thomas, I want to ask you a little bit about, I guess, kind of talking about like realtor communities, and also to just your own community in terms of kind of where do you have a go-to or a go-to of people, or somebody that you kind of get to talk to and unload about real estate stuff or ask advice, and sometimes it's an association or a group, or it's just another realtor friend. Like, who do you have, or what do you do for your realtor community?
It's really interesting. One of the things that you find, or that I found very quickly, and I'm a 2nd generation realtor. My mom is a realtor back in New York, and that's how I got kind of interested in I was working with her, very basic assistant for a couple of years. But she always seemed simultaneously surrounded by people, and then at the same time not. You could have all these people around you, but if you can't be completely honest with them about how your day's going, and it doesn't come up all the time, but it's always nice. Yeah. So I have a small group of people that I've known for a couple of years that I connect with. With COVID, it's obviously been a little bit different. We've sort of reframed. It used to be we'd get together in a backyard or at someone's house and have some breakfast or coffee or a glass of wine, depending on the time of day. We'd go over how our lives are going. With COVID, everything kind of moved to Zoom a little bit more. So, but that's been a big support group for me. And also just, having, a few really close friends in the industry that, of course, we're all like at the end of the day in competition with each other, but there's no reason why you can't have those, those sort of relationships
Totally.
with people in your community, because as much as you are in competition with them, those are also the people that you want to buddy up to, because at the end of the day, like, you want them to choose your offer for your client or
Exactly.
But yeah. I mean, I'm being silly a little bit.
No, but it's true. It's true. You totally think about that, because I mean, just think about when you get, offers on your listing, a lot of times, the seller is going to ask you for your opinion, obviously. And if you have a relationship with a realtor and they have just as strong as an offer as anybody else, it does get taken into consideration, because you know how they operate and how they work. And I'm constantly telling realtors that we're all in this together. There's enough business to go around, and that time is going to come. And even if you're, pissy with someone and you have to write an offer on one of their listings, it's like, oh man. So no, I think our realtor community needs to be stronger and we need to support each other. And there's, different schools of thought, just like any business, and clicks and all that good stuff it's the same thing. But I'm always saying too, like, if you're bad mouthing something, like, you're also bad mouthing that for the realtor, in your office, or the realtor in another state. Like, you don't know who's going to be listening to that. And we all have to take that responsibility that all of our reputations are at stake when people talk about, real estate stuff. It's not just about you. Okay, so Thomas, knowing what we're dealing with, this is November 13th, 2020, in case somebody's listening to this a year down the road. With the pandemic and being in Oregon and it being a hot market right now, how are your buyers doing, and how are you handling that for them when they get beat out of, 15 offers and things like that? How are you handling that stuff right now?
Good question, because I think a lot of people are asking themselves that right now.
Yep.
I ask myself that sometimes too. Obviously we're all, well, not everyone, but the hope is that everyone is taking the same level of safety precautions with showings and with going to look at homes. And with the pace at which stuff is moving, you have to kind of be ready to go at a moment's notice.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing a ton of upfront prep work with our clients, new clients and repeat clients, just talking about, what market expectations are as far as offers coming in on properties, hot properties, what parts of the market you could potentially take advantage of, obviously, like newer construction and, condos tend to fall by the wayside in most markets. And I would say, it's more competitive for freestanding houses, but anything that doesn't really have a ton of yardage doesn't get sought after as much, especially with COVID. So,
right.
We're talking to them about opportunities there if they don't want to deal with that level of competition. We're talking about, how to kind of gauge what your walking away point is for homes like that, and how we can avoid that feeling of defeat, being prepped to know, okay, well, if I wrote the best offer I thought I could and I still got beat out, well, I have no regrets at that point.
Yeah.
So that's been a big part of it. But there's always, I think, for us, we've had to be so direct with clients about, hey, this is a really tough market to be in. And, it might not be the right time for you to buy.
Right.
Do you want to be competitive? Do you want this great interest rate? Do you want to have to go up against multiple offers? If you don't, here are your other options. And if you do, buckle up, because it's going to be bumpy, but, the plan is we'll get you what you want.
Yeah. Are you incorporating any of that into your marketing? Like, in terms of, educating buyers and like giving ideas and things like that?
Yeah. So we have a YouTube channel that we post a video to every single week.
Now you mention it, Thomas.
Soft plug. So yeah, we'll post, videos every single week. We usually pick a different topic each week. And this last week, we actually did cover, how do you know if now is the right time to buy? So if you're curious about finding out more about that, check out the video on our YouTube page. But yeah, no, we absolutely are talking about the current market. I mean, the goal is you always want to be putting out content that is evergreen, but with a pandemic and with our market as crazy as it is right now, you never know how long this is going to be. So
right.
I would say long and the short is, yes, we are putting that out there.
Right. No, I love that, because also too, I'm sure that Patrik can attest to, it's nice to have, that's why we did the podcast, because there was like so much information that we wanted to get out to realtors that we felt like this was a good platform to do that. And then we were like, okay, now we want to talk to other people about what they're doing, because everybody's always curious about, what other realtors are doing, whether you're in the same state or a different state. But just having, like, I think Patrik, you talked a little bit about, I don't want to call it themes, that's what we call it here, but obviously, having a highlight or, something to go on for the week. So this week we're going to talk about buyers and how they can, tips and ideas and how they can win out or whatever, but also building your other marketing stuff around that particular topic is so helpful to be able to figure that out. How do you guys figure out what you're going to talk about that week, I guess, is where I'm getting it.
It's totally about, what are we hearing from our clients when we're doing tours or doing that intake session?
Yes.
What kinds of questions are coming up, so we know, hey, if you've got this question, then we know 80% of our other clients probably have the same question too. And so that informs a lot of what we plan for. And then just, making sure that we're the knowledge broker. Buying a home is scary, and COVID is scary. And so the more that we can arm ourselves and then our clients with that knowledge and just sort of try to instill that level of calm in the storm has really set them up for success. And like Thomas said, sometimes it means, being pretty frank that this might not be the best time, but we'll do what we can for you.
Yeah, I love that. I think also too, it just, again, Thomas, and you've mentioned it a couple times too, with, your brain, you just have to make sure if something's not taken care of, then it's just still on your brain. Like, I got to get this done. But there's so many great ways to be able to handle, it's all about pain points, and I think just like you said, Patrick, I love that you mentioned that you listen to your clients and what they have to say, because then you get to talk about stuff that they actually want to hear about and not stuff that you think they want to hear about, So listening to your clients is really a huge part of this job. We know that we're not just realtors, we're psychiatrists and, a million other things that we are, but hearing about that is half the battle, and it's about that relationship. So before we go, I also want to know a little bit about what you guys do. Thomas, you talked a little bit about newsletters and the YouTube channel. After closing, what do you do to stay in touch with your clients?
One of our big things that we do, and we can't do this during COVID, of course, as much or in the same format, is, we'll hold these events, client events every quarter, some sort of party. In the winter, we do a winter doldrums party. In the spring, we do a bright, bubbly little get together. We even went so far as to order a fountain. So we have like a drink fountain.
Oh, nice. That you use occasionally at home, I'm sure. Gotta make sure it's still working.
It's a lot of setup for the payoff. Yeah. But, our most recent thing that we did was, we had a socially distant client photo event that we actually got a couple alpacas to come in and take people's holiday photos with them. And that's our way of kind of saying thank you for referring us, and thank you for being, such a great person, and thanks for being, involved in our lives. And I got, probably one of the sweetest emails I've gotten back from a client saying, thank you so much for doing this, and for, we thought you were great already, but knowing that you gave us this opportunity to feel like we are close with our families at a time when we really can't be.
Yeah.
And so being able to send this photo home to them, this holiday card, when we didn't think we'd have that option, felt really good. So, just adding value to their lives how we can. That's probably been our biggest push. We have reminders for anniversaries, and we do send out a monthly newsletter, and we just like to keep in touch with all the people in our, in our world. It's a lot of the clients that we work with become friends or we're friends already. And so I think that plays a big part in it.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm hearing a lot about, realtors, when the pandemic first kind of started coming at us, I was like, realtors are going to figure this out. They do this on a daily basis, right? You're constantly pivoting and putting out fires and figuring stuff out. It's a part of the business. And so I hear more about realtors figuring stuff out and more positive messages than I do the complaining. And, again, in any business, you're like, or even just in life, but I've heard more than ever this year, realtors talking about the things that they are doing instead of the things that they're not. So I love that you guys still, did an event and just did it differently and figured it out instead of just canceling it. And I'm sure that says a lot to your client. Just as you said, you got an email, but even all the people that you didn't get an email from probably all felt the same way as well. So I think that's really smart to do.
Yeah, and there's so much precaution that goes into stuff like that too. We're not just bullishly driving ahead. Thankfully our office has really great ventilation. It's a newer building and has a bay door in the back that goes to the outside. So we had good airflow and scheduling people out. So it wasn't just a a big,
people
you
in a
know,
room, right?
exactly, right. Yeah, but there's always risk associated with that. And so we just try to mitigate it as much we can. And if something doesn't seem, viable, then we scrap it. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's been the bulk of our
Yeah. Big
our
sigh of relief, I heard.
relationship.
You can hear it in your voice. All right, you two. I want to say thank you so much for, it always feels a little bit weird when we do a Zoom recording with realtors that are local. But again, we're all being, as safe as we can and doing our part and being responsible. So thank you so much for doing this. I want to make sure that people have your YouTube channel and your Instagram. So tell us, of course, where people can find you.
Sure. So if you look up Piece of PDX, which is spelled like a piece of pie and not peace on earth, that's my handle on Instagram, and then for YouTube as well. And then Patrick.
I'm at patrick.pieceofpdx on Instagram.
Do you do your own Instagrams, or do you also have a Piece of PDX Instagram, or do you do everything on your personal Instagram?
My Instagram transformed. So it was my personal business Instagram previously. It was Thomas_real estate. And then once Piece of PDX kind of became a thing for us, I transitioned that over into just being that. The thought of having to start a new Instagram over was a little too daunting for me. Right. So everything just lives on there for me. And then Patrick has his as well. That
is the number one question that realtors always have for themselves. It's like, do I put my business stuff on my personal? Do I have two Instagrams? Like, how do I? So I always love to ask how realtors are doing that, because quite honestly, your realtor life is your personal life and vice versa. And so, not everybody's comfortable with that. So obviously don't do something you're not gonna do or that you're comfortable with,
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we've really been pushing for this year is being more authentic.
Yes.
In our brand and who we are, because I think that at least when I got started in real estate, I had a picture in my head of what a real estate agent looked like.
Yeah.
And it was a businessman with a briefcase and, a leather folio and all the kind of trappings of your old school realtor, which isn't me. And so for a long time, I tried really hard to emulate that and be that person. And it just didn't work. It always felt off. It always felt kind of stodgy and weird. And then, as I got more comfortable in my brand, I started to be more straight up on my posts on social media. There's always that, what line am I towing now between, okay, now you just sound like an unpleasant person who complains all the time, and I'm just being honest about what my life is.
Right.
We gave it a lot of thought in relaunching the brand, and kind of came to a realization that being authentic is what your clients want to see. They don't want some made up perfect person who is just always on and always happy, or always this way or always that way.
Right.
It's okay to be authentic. And in fact, what I found is a lot of the time it actually endears people to you more than when you expose yourself and make yourself open, than when you try to present this like proper polished realtor all the time.
Right.
There's nobody, I mean, I don't know, I'm not that. Maybe there are people like that, but that's never been me, and that's never been my brand.
Yeah, totally. And you never know who you're going to resonate with. And also too, people want to know who you are, even on social media. I mean, I feel like we should be here already, where people are like, okay, the person that I meet and the person that I saw on their Instagram is the same person, but there's still people that try to be something different. And I don't think exactly what you just said about being authentic. I think that's the key right there. And if people haven't been hearing that, then they've got to hear that, because that's what your business is all about, right?
It's knowing who you're for, and it's knowing who you're not for, right? Like when I first started in real estate, I would take any client, no matter who it was, even if I just felt like, wow, this person, makes my skin crawl. I would work with them because the understanding was, hey, this is an opportunity. And as you, I guess, get more comfortable in your business, there's an awareness, hey, maybe this person would do better with someone else.
Yeah.
And maybe it's okay if I let this person go because I don't want to create a contentious situation, or I
Yep.
don't want to try to force something that doesn't work.
There's someone for everyone, and you
Yeah.
want to work with your people, and your people want to work with their people. So
And you'll find that, your business will flourish from that rather than getting, worn out on the people that maybe aren't a good fit for you.
yep. And then there goes all your time too. You're spending all your time on that person instead of the people that you should be spending your time on.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, right.
So Piece of PDX, you guys go find them on the YouTube channel, on the YouTubes, and also Instagram. Do you guys do Facebook?
Yeah.
Nah. I hear you.
Yeah, it's
I'm all for
there.
Instagram and YouTube, and I think that's enough, actually.
Yeah. We have a website too. We post blogs there, and we're actually working on a big project where we're trying to shoot a video in every neighborhood in Portland and have a little
Love it.
neighborhood description. So
Yes. Okay, is that pieceofpdx.com?
that's right.
Awesome. All right, you two. Well, thank you so much for being with me today. And I can't believe no dogs barked. Patrick, I don't know how we got away with that, but good job to the doggos. Bacon for everyone. All right, you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.